Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind. This is, once again, another bonus episode. Not a bonus episode. What the fuck am I talking about? This is another topic episode. It's been a little bit since we've done one of these. We were supposed to do one a few episodes back, but then Halloween came around and we wanted to have a bunch of Halloween specials. So now we're back to it. We're going to do a topic episode. And Alex, what are we going to be talking about today?
Oh, I was going to do like a whole funny... You usually say this is my buddy Alex.
Oh, we could do it again. Let's do it.
No, it's okay.
Go back to wherever you're doing.
No,
No, it's fine.
No,
Let's
it's
do your
annoying.
bit.
No, I'm done.
Let's do your bit.
The moment has passed.
Okay. Well, I've got my buddy Alex with me.
If you subscribe to our Patreon, we'll do the funny bit.
Oh, okay.
Not you, the listener. You don't have to subscribe. Yeah. It's your Patreon.
It's true. It's true. Anywho, what are we going to be talking about today, bud?
I'm going to continue to put off talking about what we're talking about by pointing out how much bigger my head is in relation to yours on the video. It's really freaking me out.
We had some technical issues, and we decided to use Zoom instead of FaceTime because FaceTime just has not been working the last 3 or 4 episodes. So Zoom, and apparently our heads are disproportionate.
I mean, my head is bigger than most people's, so they are really disproportionate in real life, but my computer was also just closer, which I think I've remedied now. Good. So today we're talking about Top Gun and Hot Shots, which is a parody of Top Gun.
Yep. So for this topic episode, what we're going to do is we're going to briefly talk about, I think, what makes a good parody. We'll talk about some of our favorite parodies, and then we'll move into a brief movie comparison because obviously these are not remakes, but we want to use this particular set of movies as an example of parodies. So that being said, what do you think makes a good parody?
I think the most important thing is probably clarity of vision. And what I mean by that is like, we are doing a parody of this specific movie or genre, this specific thing. And we're doing it, for a reason, usually, even if it's, as simple as like this genre's tropes have become so predictable that we need to do a parody of it to point out how silly all of these tropes are, even if we still love the genre or the movie itself or whatever. And that's in comparison to the glut of bad parodies and spoofs that we got in the
late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I think the mid-aughts is where it got really bad.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like Meet the Spartans and the later scary movies.
When I worked at the movie theater from 2004 to 2007, we had Scary Movie 3, 4, 5, Epic Movie, Date Movie.
Superhero movie.
I think I had just left the theater before Superhero Movie and Meet the Spartans. But still, that's an absurd amount of these parody movies coming out back to back to back to back.
And those aren't even...
the reason...
Sorry, just to make my point, those aren't even really parody movies at that point. Those are pop culture reference. Those are 2 hours of pop culture references with the vague, with a thin veil of theme.
Like, at least with the scary movies, even I haven't seen them all. I think I stopped at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
They all mimicked at least one movie. So the first one obviously mimicked Scream. The second one mimicked like House on Haunted Hill kind of thing. The third one was Signs, and then I don't remember the other 2 at all.
Yeah.
So at least they had that. When you look at like Epic Movie, Date Movie, they were more, like you kind of mentioned, spoofs of the genre, but there wasn't necessarily a single story that kind of held it all together.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to spoof a genre, but there needs to be something holding it together, not just pop culture references.
The closest ones that do very well with those, I think 90s was kind of as these started to die off, and then they came back with Scary Movie, but you had like Leslie Nielsen doing like Spy Hard, the Naked Gun series. Those had a center line story that held it together, and then it had all the little like farcical comedic things that kind of went off on tangents, but at least there was like one plot holding it together.
Yeah, and those aren't even necessarily direct parodies. You know what I mean? Those are sort of broad parodies of a genre, but those are also just like slapstick comedies.
Yeah. For me, and I think it kind of goes in line with what you're saying, to me, what I think makes a good parody is something that can, you know what it is, you know that it's parodying something specific, but it kind of has its own story. So like Spaceballs, for example, I think Spaceballs is probably my favorite.
Any Mel Brooks.
Right. But like Mel Brooks, you have Blazing Saddles is more just more of a genre one, whereas Spaceballs is specifically a Star Wars parody.
Sure.
It's very obvious what it's trying to do. It's very obvious it's poking fun at Star Wars. It has a lot of the same characters. Of course, you combine Luke and Han for the main character, played by Bill Pullman. But you see all your major characters, but it has its own story. It doesn't necessarily follow the plot of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi. It's clearly its own story, but has all those elements. I think that, to me, is like the best kind of parody. Even the Austin Powers ones do that fairly well, where there's that one story, you know what it's doing, you know each villain that it's mimicking, but it is its own story. It's not parodying a specific James Bond movie.
Yeah, and that's sort of the most important thing about film and storytelling and screenwriting, that you can always come back to. If it's an interesting story, that's all that matters. It can be animation, it can be parody, it can be stick figures, whatever. You can tell a story in any medium, and if you make the audience care about the character, it won't matter what you're doing.
So what are some things that you don't like in a parody or a spoof movie? I would just say off the bat, I hate when they take something that's funny and then they just take it too long. And I think that's something that a lot of these movies will do, is they'll take something that's funny and then they repeat the joke, they repeat the joke, they repeat the joke, and then it goes 5, 6, 7 layers deep and then it's no longer funny. I can't stand that. And I think the people who do that really well, I don't know if you've ever watched Letterkenny.
I've been told that.
Oh, you should absolutely watch Letterkenny. It's fantastic. But they are experts at that, where they will literally have episodes where they go 3 minutes where they have a pun and they're just doing play on words, and they take it and they stretch it to that absolute point where you go, all right, that's enough. And then they stop. They're masters at that. But I think a lot of these people who make these type of movies don't know where that line is.
Yeah, that's like a very specific thing, is this sort of, I don't know, you call it like cringe comedy or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that like stretching out a joke for as long as possible, as far as possible, and still making it funny. And if you're bad at it or you don't know what you're doing, it's not fun for anybody.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to, I think that's an issue that even modern comedy has, where especially when you get a comedy with like a bunch of really funny comedians where they each want to have their bit. I think the newer Ghostbusters did it, which I actually enjoyed the newer Ghostbusters movie. There was that, what is it, the 7-year engagement? I think it was something like that. It had 5-year engagement. There were just scenes like that where you get these big comedians in and they want to have their little riffs, and it just goes on and on. And you can sometimes tell when somebody's riffing and riffing and riffing, and the people around them are kind of standing there awkwardly because they don't really know when this person's going to stop and they can say their line, or like now they have to ad-lib something.
The Judd Apatowization of modern comedy.
I agree.
I like Judd Apatow a lot, and I like the people that he works with that are good at improv, but even they don't bat 1,000. And it encourages a lot of other people who are not as good of comedians or directors to do these like long improv runs. And yeah, like you said, it's just like, all right, let's move on.
Then you run into the problem where like a lot of them end up being producers, and so they can throw their weight around and say, well, I want this joke in. So all of a sudden you have all these jokes in the movie that really don't benefit the story. They don't benefit really anything. It's just like, now you're padding the runtime, where I'd rather have a tight comedy that's 90 minutes than, something that's padded to be 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a thing. Like when you go back to like the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of movies that were that 87 minutes to 90 minutes, maybe 110 minutes, but not everything had to be 2 hours. But now it seems like every movie has to be 2 to 2.5 hours. And it's like, you don't need that.
And I think Hot Shots is a great example of sort of what you're talking about. It's like a very scripted movie. Like Hot Shots,
7 minutes.
All of it was on paper. All the jokes are there on paper. They weren't hot dogging for the camera or anything.
No, I don't think so, because there's so much of it that you couldn't just ad-lib, and there were so many like weird special effects you had to do that. So I think before we get into it, if you want to just...
You did ask me, you asked me what I don't like in a parody, right?
Oh, yeah, and I just went on my rant.
No, it's fine. I was adding to it. But I think something that we didn't say is relentless pop culture references because it immediately dates it. And it's why Family Guy has had this like insane backlash in the past 10 years or so. Because people like figured out that, and I, as a person who watched Family Guy religiously for the first, 5 seasons or whatever, they're doing so many pop culture references that after a couple of years, it's just like, oh yeah, that was a thing. Where's the joke? Am I just laughing because I recognize that you said something funny,
Right.
or are you actually telling me a joke?
Yeah, it's really hard to go back to episodes. I actually started watching Family Guy again. I normally wait until a full season's on Hulu, and for a while it would take a bit for them to actually get on there. So I recently went back and watched. I think they're on like season 19 is currently running, and I went and watched like 17 and 18 right before the pandemic started, and it's like I enjoyed it, but like I went back and randomly watched an old episode, and yeah, I agree, it immediately dates the movie. So
yeah, and that's why like Simpsons seasons 3 through 15 are so good, because there's not pop culture references, but they're telling good stories, and you care about the characters. You care about Bart and Lisa and all the other characters. I just realized I started naming characters like, yeah, you know who's in The Simpsons. But yeah, they're characters that you care about. There's always a heartfelt moment in the story. And the humor incorporates pop culture of the time, but it doesn't rely on it. So you can go back and watch something 30 fucking years later, and it's still a good story. It's still funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into talking about Top Gun and Hot Shots, what are your favorite parody movies?
Blazing Saddles is probably my favorite.
Blazing Saddles is fantastic.
Yeah,
and we're gonna get to talk about that one soon, because they're doing the animated remake with like samurais and ninjas.
I'm gonna be surprised if that goes through.
I mean, apparently it's already done. They just
Really?
didn't release it like a year and a half ago.
All right,
like it's done, and Mel Brooks signed off on it. He actually even did a voice on it. Okay. It's gonna happen. It's
well,
just a matter
you
of
also
when.
thought that we were going to be back in theaters in July, so
hey,
forgive
some
me.
people were.
That's true. All right. Yeah, Blazing Saddles. I mean, any Mel Brooks is up there. I have a lot of fondness for Robin Hood Men in Tights, and
That's fantastic.
Yeah. What's not Spaceballs or Young Frankenstein? Oh, Dracula Dead and Loving It was another one.
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Because it came out when I was like 9 or 10, so it was the perfect age for it. And I've revisited both of those movies, and they don't hold up as well as Young Frankenstein or Spaceballs do. Or I don't think Spaceballs holds up that well either, actually. And they're all still fun. I'm not saying they're not fun, but yeah, Blazing Saddles is the one for me.
Blazing Saddles is great.
So Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2 are both a couple of my. Well, I should say the second one are a couple of my favorites as well. I love these movies.
So my favorite is definitely Spaceballs. Like hands down, Spaceballs is my favorite. I also love Dracula Dead and Loving It. And then I really like the Austin Powers movies, but that's also because I'm a few years younger than you. Those were the ones that came out when I was 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
Oh, I mean,
so
I saw all 3 of those movies in the theaters, I think, and those were like, at least the first one was formative. Like we were quoting that all over middle school.
The first and the second one we were quoting all the damn time. The third one to a lesser extent. So I would definitely say those are probably.
I actively dislike the third one.
Go back and watch it. So I
don't want to.
Trust me. Like, so we did all 3 for Ruin My Childhood, and the third one, actually going back and rewatching it, I liked it better than the second one.
I think I tried to rewatch it last year or earlier this year, actually.
I liked it better than the second, but I still think the first is the best.
I've revisited those movies, that character, recently, and I think it's like overexposure. Like doesn't do it for me anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. It's like a song that you've heard way too many goddamn times.
Yeah.
I feel you, dog. I feel you.
The Austin Powers is kind of in the middle of the Venn diagram of what we've been talking about between like the improv school of comedy and this like highly scripted slapstick gag based humor. I think Austin Powers seems to have a good amount of both.
Yeah. Would you count Galaxy Quest as one? Because I fucking love Galaxy Quest, but I don't know if that's technically.
Yeah, I mean that's tricky because it is parodying Star Trek. If I had to choose, I mean, we live in the real world where art can be many things, and Galaxy Quest is brilliant because it is many things at once, including parody and including straight up comedy. It's fucking original too, even though it's playing off of Star Trek. It's an original take on, or an original look at fans and what it means to be a star on one of those shows.
Right.
So yeah, if I had a gun to my head, I would say it's not a parody, even though it incorporates.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. Like if we counted those as parodies, hands down, those two are my favorite. The only other one that I can think of that I hold to esteem, and I have not watched this since it came out, would be Walk Hard, which is actually what we're gonna be doing a 2-part episode on this. We're gonna also do Walk Hard and Walk the Line.
Fuck yeah. I love
when Walk Hard came out. I fucking loved it. I've only seen it like twice. Once when it came in theaters, and then
I watched it this year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I watched it a couple months ago. It's incredible.
Oh, okay. So we watched it when it came out in theaters, and I watched it once on DVD, and I remember liking it. I've gone back and watched a lot of the Will Ferrell movies from that era, and I know it's not Will Ferrell, but like some of those comedies from that time frame, and I haven't enjoyed them. So I don't know if it's going to hold up, at least for me, but I'm definitely interested in watching it again. But let's get into Top Gun and Hot Shots. We picked these ones because they're just good. At least I remember Hot Shots being fun. I remember Hot Shots Part 2 more than the first one. Yeah. But Top Gun is a classic movie, and I'm surprised it took as long as it did to have a
5 years.
Were you telling me 5 years? Or okay, I thought that was your symbol. Like I had something to say.
No.
Yeah, 5 years.
That's what I do when I have something to say in a conversation.
Yeah, 5 years after Top Gun came out. I'm really surprised
crazy.
It took that long.
These movies that we were talking about earlier, like Meet the Spartans, came out, within a year of 300.
Years, yeah.
I remember when the spoof movies were at the height in the mid early aughts. Some of them were coming out the same year as the movie that they were parodying.
They were coming out like every 6 months or so. One of them would be coming out, and it's because just
it would come out the same year of the movie that he was making fun of. It was crazy.
Well, it was crazy. The Wayans brothers tried to get back into them again, like they did 50 Shades of Grey. I don't know I can't remember what the
50 Shades of Black.
50 Shades of Black came out months after 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
which is crazy that they do that. But this was kind of like the Blumhouse model. Like the Blumhouse model now is you make a movie for $10 to $20 million.
Less.
You don't do a ton of promos for it, but
you make a movie for $1 to $3 million.
Yeah, well, they do that too. But
that's what they do, and then they'll do 1 or 2 that is 10.
Yeah, and all of them will make $80 to $100 million, and that's a huge return on their investment. So that's kind of what these movies were. They were doing.
Just to expand on Blumhouse a little bit, I say Blumhouse, you say Blumhouse. I don't know, but they make like 10 or 15 movies for $1 million, and then some of them get shelved, and some of them go straight to Netflix. And now they've got this deal with Hulu where they're doing the Into the Dark movies.
Yep.
So it's movies that don't even see. Some of them don't see the light of day. And the other ones, get a peek at day, but they don't get a theatrical release.
Yeah, but even those ones, like I was reading about, we're going on a tangent again, but it's totally fine. The new 007 movie, because it's gotten pushed so many times, they're concerned that this is never going to happen. So they were entertaining an idea of Amazon or Apple buying it and it going straight to streaming. But Sony and MGM wanted something like $600 million for it, and like everybody's like, "We'll give you 80 to 90 million for it." Yeah. But like that makes sense, like for them not to take 80 or 90 when that movie costs $200 million to make. But $600 million is kind of ridiculous. But they've also had to market it at this point like 3 different times, so.
Yeah, and it's also like
get it.
You don't know what's going to happen, and that is the money that's less than the money that they would have seen from a theatrical release.
Right.
But so it's hard to let go of that.
Blumhouse one, if they make a movie for $1 million and Amazon or Netflix gives them 1.5 million and they don't have to promote it at all, like that's still a lot of money. Yeah. So like Blumhouse is doing that, and that's kind of what these kind of movies were doing. Like I was reading at some point, some of these parody movies were only costing like $6 to $9 million. So if they made $45 million in the box office, it was a hit. And that's why we just kept getting these damn things for years. So
yeah,
I'm glad it kind of died.
Me too.
But let's get into Top Gun.
I have a theory about that. We'll talk about Top Gun first, but I want to circle back to that.
All right.
Yeah, man, Top Gun's a classic. Tony Scott.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Who also directed True Romance, which also stars Val Kilmer as Elvis.
Yep.
And Elvis is at the. Val Kilmer is in, Elvis is in Hot Shots.
Yeah, Val Kilmer didn't even want to do this movie, but he was contractually obligated to do a third movie with Paramount, and so they just kind of forced him to do this. And then, of course, this became like, besides Batman, his biggest movie. So
wow,
good for
it
Val
is his
Kilmer
biggest
being
movie,
forced
isn't
to
it?
do it. Yeah.
What when you think of Val Kilmer, what are the movies that you think of?
I think Batman Forever. I think this.
Yep.
I think The Saint, and I think Real Genius.
Also, Top Secret, another parody, and actually done by the Zuckers.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's just kind of like secret agent version of this. You were talking about. We were talking about. You mentioned Hot Fuzz, which is sort of a parody of Michael Bay movies.
Yeah.
And I was watching this and I was thinking, man, Michael Bay took a lot from Tony Scott.
He really did. Absolutely did. And like from the music to the big spectacles to everything, like that is just the Michael Bay's MO.
Yeah, just like the way it looks too, you know, like he creates a mood that is very similar to Tony Scott.
Well, then you also look at like the basically just the hard on for the military as well is also a big Michael Bay thing. So just so you know, like this movie, like it had mixed reviews, but it was a huge hit. Like it fucking made all the money in the world, and so much so that they started putting like military recruiters in movie theaters, and as people were coming out, they were recruiting them, and it like went up like 300% or some fucking nonsense like that.
That's so gross.
After it's disgusting.
Imagine going to see Shaun of the Dead, and as you come out of the theater, there's like zombies out there. Like, do you want to be a zombie?
That'd be weird.
Yeah,
that'd be really weird. But yeah, I think you're right. That's a really apt observation to say that Michael Bay and Tony Scott have a lot of crossover. Their Venn diagram of like movie making skills would be very large.
I mean, I would go so far as to say Michael Bay ripped off Tony Scott.
I think that's fair.
And he's just like a little bit less heart and more steroids.
And you look at like even like the music, like so the thing that when I think Top Gun,
that one music note, dude. Both of those. Yep. That fucking like the first thing that you hear is this like electronic sort of like chill drum beat with the big piano chord or piano hit at the beginning, and that's like that one bong pre Christopher Nolan is what I think about when I think Top Gun, and then the sweet guitar riff,
and then Danger Zone, Kenny Loggins. Yeah,
it's crazy. And also the Righteous Brothers. Like it's crazy how well the music was done in this movie.
It's insane. Like that's the first thing I think about is that movie.
The song that they used for his love scene with Kelly McGillis, which took they played 3 times. It took 10 minutes for them to fuck.
Yeah, dude. So
take my breath away.
Since you brought up the love scene, Katrina and I will both watch this movie. So she doesn't generally watch the movies that we watch for Remake Rewind. But we're in the middle of the move. I had to stop the move to watch the movies. I do have to apologize to you. I was not able to get the mini episode up last week. Just did not have time to edit it.
I noticed, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah,
don't apologize to me. Apologize to our fans.
Fuck our fans. Just kidding, guys.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry, Scarlett. Sorry,
guys. I really wanted to, but the move took literally everything that could have gone wrong with the move did go wrong. And all the time we thought we were going to have just went away. We broke our bed, so we had to get a new bed.
We don't need to hear about this guy. This is a G-rated podcast.
It was like, that would have been cool. This is definitely not a PG podcast. But yeah, we broke our bed taking it apart, so we had to go get a new bed. You can kind of see, I'm like acting like
I see vertical blinds.
So the vertical blinds, if you look, it's just
cool.
like open. Like
Cool.
that's our room. So we bought some giant plexiglass to seal that off and like wood frames. So we're gonna make like little windows in there, so that way when I'm working and recording, people can't hear me in the living room. Like our bedroom has one of these too.
Oh, that's not outside. That's to another room.
That's to another room.
You should make a little door
open.
for a cat.
Well, that's down the stairs, so it's like a 10-foot drop. So the cats can't really get in that way.
No,
and we don't want them up there. So we're gonna we're closing those off with windows. So this is great podcasting. None of our listeners can see this, but
I can't see anything either.
We had to go and get stuff to build windows, and we're gonna box that in, and that took like a day out of our move to do that. I bought a new desk, and the desk was like broken, and just because we had to get materials for that, we were going to get the truck after we got the materials for the window, but our order wasn't done on time, so then we had to delay getting the truck, and so we like pushed our whole getting the truck and packing and everything pushed a whole day, and it was just a nightmare. Our wedding china broke. It was awful.
That sucks. I'm sorry. I see during all of this, you did have time to grow a scummy little mustache, though.
Yeah, I haven't shaved in a few days. It's bad.
I only see the lip. Anyway, Top Gun's pretty cool. Hey, I have a question.
Gun's pretty cool. Yep.
Why is everyone on the aircraft carrier so sweaty?
I had that note too. Like the first person we see,
just covered
like the radio
sweat.
guy.
Dripping.
Like he's just like getting like, oh, we got some bogeys. We got some MiGs coming.
He looks like he just opened the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, he's just sweating, and then like the commanding officer's like, "Oh, we need to get some air, like some pilots out there," and he's sweating, and then you just see like all the people on deck waving their flags, and they're all sweaty, and then the pilots, you see Tom Cruise and Anthony Edwards, they're sweating in the airplane
for like half the movie. They sweat too.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's weird, and then you have like
I thought C was cold.
There's several times where Tom Cruise is like, as Maverick is like, I need to take a shower. Like he's constantly showering in this movie. Like most of this movie, he's in the shower or he's in a towel about to go to the shower or just got out of a shower. That's half the movie.
Yeah.
He goes to Charlie's house, presumably to fuck, has dinner, and is like, well, I'm going to have a shower. And she's like, no, you're not. And he's like, okay. And then he leaves to go take a shower instead of fucking her. It's super weird, dude.
And that's the beginning of that, this whole... It's like 3 scenes in one, but it culminates with him and Kelly McGillis, Charlie, finally having sex. But it's like
the most awkward kisses.
They keep on like playing the song, like Take My Breath Away. It's like, oh good, they're finally gonna fuck. Oh nope, not gonna do it. And then he's like, it's the next day, and he's getting into the elevator, and they chat for a little bit, and then they start playing the music again. It's like, oh nope, not gonna fuck in the elevator. And then it's like the next day, and like. She disagrees with him about flying or something, and he's like, you can't do that to me, I'm Top Gun, blah blah blah, and he like races off, and she goes through a stop sign, and then she's like, you didn't let me finish my sentence, I love you, motherfucker. And then they finally fuck. It's like, come on guys, God.
But like he does this weird kiss.
Couldn't there have been a more efficient way to get these two together?
Right. So the thing that's weird is, I'm not the first person to say this, but if you look at Tom Cruise's history, in the 80s and 90s, he was a leading man. He would kiss women in movies. He was a romantic lead. He was a viable romantic lead in movies. Mm-hmm. But then he had his jumping on the couch moment with I Love Katie Holmes. And if you notice from that, he hasn't really kissed women in movies. And it's like a lot of people are like off-put by it. Like they have said, people are off-put by seeing Tom Cruise kiss women at this point.
Well...
But then I look at this movie, and I was off-put because he does this weird little thing where he just kind of like jabs his tongue in her mouth and then like immediately takes it out. It's almost like a xenomorph with like the second mouth going out. It's like that. It's super weird.
He's Earth's greatest actor because he's a space alien, and he's convinced us all that he is a human that acts.
I feel terrible every time we watch anything with Tom Cruise, and one of the things we watched when we get to What You've Been Up To, Bud, is actually a Tom Cruise movie. I'll say what it is in a little bit. But I fucking love every movie Tom Cruise does.
Yeah,
and he's a
I like him a
terrible
lot.
person.
I mean,
he's a fucking crazy person, terrible person.
I like him as an actor. I like a lot of stuff that he does.
All of his movies.
Yeah.
Like literally every movie that I can think of.
I posted on my Instagram. I posted a picture of Top Gun on my Instagram, and one of my friends immediately wrote back, fuck Tom Cruise, though.
Yeah, seriously, like that's how everybody feels. But it's like, I will watch anything that he's in.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really good segue into my main point about this movie. This is a fucking gay movie, bro. I don't know. I don't know how we keep doing this.
It's definitely the most homoerotic film that we've covered. And we're not the first people to say this. Everybody has said this about these movies, but
I did not. I've heard that, and it didn't sink in until I started watching it again. This movie is so clearly... This is a movie about a man finding his way back to love after his husband is tragically killed in a plane accident.
What's weird is, like, everybody always points to the volleyball scene. And
it's
it has
so
like
much
Kenny
more
Loggins,
than that.
like
It's so much more
Kenny
than
Loggins
that.
playing with the boys, like, is the song playing. But no, what's weird was that, like, when you look at like the animosity between Iceman and Maverick, like
so
they're
much sexual
always
tension
like in each other's faces, and they're like you can't see, but they always like are like chomping at the bit at each other. They're literally like chomping at each other.
Yeah.
They're when I think his name's Slider, one of the other pilots or one of their other ROIs,
Iceman's
yeah, it says something to Maverick, and he's like, "Hey, Slider," and he gets like right up in his face, like inches away, and then like just stares at him sensually, and like Slider is like kind of taken aback, but then he looks like confused, but he also looks like he's kind of enjoying it, and then he's like, "What?" And he's like, "You stink," and everything, and then he backs up. It's like, "What is this?" Like, it's super awkward, super weird.
So when they first go to Top Gun, in this movie, they're recruited for a program within the Air Force called the Top Gun program.
The Navy.
Yeah, which is part of the Air Force, or the Navy. The Air Force is part of the Navy.
Chair Force.
You fucked up my whole thing, man. They're recruited for this program, Top Gun, if you don't know, and they basically go through like a little 6-week or whatever training course where they're trained to be better dogfighters because the U.S. needs better dogfighters. So anyway, they go to this. They go through this program, and the first class that they do, the instructor is like introducing them to the class and stuff, and they're like, "We got this new plane that has really big guns on it," and then it cuts to, I think, Slider, in fact, and he looks over at Iceman and one of the other guys. He goes, "This gives me a hard on," and the other guy goes, "Don't tease me."
Yeah, dude, it's super weird.
And then they've got their arms around each other in that scene too,
right?
You know, like,
and it's like
chilling.
I get.
And then they go to the bar. I got another one for you. I'm not done. They go to the bar where they sing the Righteous Brothers song to Charlie, who, as we've said, no sexual chemistry with Tom Cruise. And they're both like, I mean, Tom Cruise, I think, is generally accepted as being an attractive person, and Kelly McGillis is beautiful.
Especially in this time period.
Yeah. She looks beautiful now too. I just saw a bunch of articles. I saw a bunch of articles based on like 2 sentences that she said about the new movie, where she's like, "Yeah, they didn't ask me to do the new movie. I look like a 55-year-old woman, which is what I am, and that's normal, and that's not what Hollywood is about." She didn't even say it that harshly, but she looks beautiful in the picture. I think she said, "I'm old and fat, and I look age appropriate."
Yeah, she said something like that.
But sorry, my other example before I forget. They're in the bar where they do the famous Righteous Brothers song performed for Charlie.
Never close your eyes.
Charlie, by the way, who has a man's name, and before Tom Cruise decides to sleep with her, like immediately after he turns her down, the next scene she's wearing like a big men's jacket and a hat with her hair and a hat with her hair up, so she like looks more masculine presenting. And I was like, oh, that's fucking interesting.
Like
the
Point
bar.
Break.
The bar, yeah, exactly. The bar where he sings to her, there's a line where Tom Cruise says to Goose, even you could get played. Let me start over. Tom Cruise says, even you could get laid in a place like this. And then I looked at all of the people around them, and it's all men.
It's all Navy men.
Yeah. And there's like one woman in the background like, "Hi, you can have sex with me."
Yeah, I thought that was a little off too. And
it's about gay men, dude. And that's cool. You know? We back that.
What's interesting,
but it is what the movie's about.
It's interesting because like this movie did lead to the government using movies as a recruiting tool, and since this movie,
which is funny because the government doesn't want gay people to get married.
That's true, but they use movies as recruiting tools, and like this movie, I remember a lot of people liking this movie back in the day, and this was a lot of people. Like when I was getting into the workforce at 15 years old and like working with people who are a little older, like this is a lot of people I knew's favorite movie. And like people who were like, raw, I'm so machismo, I'm an alpha male kind of guy.
This
And
movie
they don't see the homoerotic tension in this movie like at all. And it's like it's not any subtext. Like it's on the surface.
Yeah, and I wonder if the people who are making, this and Fast and Furious and Point Break, I think definitely this and Point Break. Well, I think definitely Point Break. If they're aware of the undercurrent of homoeroticism. I think Fast and Furious, maybe not, but I don't really know that director. I think Catherine Bigelow had that on her mind. And I don't know enough about Tony Scott, but I feel like this is the artist in all of these movies sort of sneaking this kind of conversation into it.
Don't think it is. I definitely with Point Break.
I don't think it's the case with Michael Bay.
It's definitely not the case with Michael Bay, but I don't think it is even with this. Like, when you look at the story, it's a very bare bones story. There isn't a whole lot going on. I don't really think it's that deep. I think he just kind of made the movie and it came out that way. But I don't know. Like, everyone's seen this movie. I don't know how much we really need to talk about it.
I was going to say this movie came out the year after I was born, and I distinctly remember being like 11 or something and wanting to get my hair cut like Tom Cruise in this movie. Not that it's anything special, but like that was a reference point. This movie was on TV 10
all
years
the time.
later.
My dad watched it every time it was on. Literally every time it was on. It didn't matter what part of the movie it was. It could be the last 20 minutes. It could be the first 20 minutes.
It's very easy to watch.
We're gonna watch it. And I remember at around the same age, like 10, 11, I really wanted to be a fighter pilot. Most boys at some point wanted to be a fighter pilot. But I remember I grew up in the Bay Area, and in Mountain View they had Space Camp, but there was also a fighter pilot version of Space Camp, and like that was my dream, was to go to that, and it never happened. But this movie was very influential to me. I had the PlayStation game, the Top Gun PlayStation game, was one of my favorite games on the original PlayStation. It was so much fun, and it actually had the admiral, I think it was admiral or captain or whoever, like the guy who was like in charge of the Air Force or the aircraft carrier at the bookends of the movie.
Not
that
Viper.
guy reprised his role.
Yeah, that guy. That's cool.
The bald guy.
Yeah, the sweaty guy.
The sweaty bald guy. But yeah, he like was the guy in that movie, and God, I loved this movie. I loved like the music. I loved Anthony Edwards. Like, I grew up watching ER. Like, my mom's a nurse and she watched all the medical shows. So it was actually really funny seeing Anthony Edwards with hair, as much hair as he had, because less than 8 years later, so 1994 is when ER started, he's bald.
Yeah.
Like, completely bald by that. So it's really weird. Then it was also weird seeing Meg Ryan in this movie. Like, I knew she was in it, but I thought she was a bigger part. She's in like 2 scenes.
And she's so tan.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it was super weird. And she's
what
like
was
bubbly.
also weird?
What's that?
How awkward Tom Cruise was with the kid. Like, when they...
Dude, I pointed that out too. He like doesn't know what to do with his hands.
Yeah, it was super weird. So like, it's the middle of the movie.
It's where you realize Goose is definitely gonna die.
Yeah, Maverick and Charlie are together at this point. They haven't said, hey, we love you or anything like that, but they've made it clear that they're going to be in some sort of relationship, and they can't let anybody at Top Gun know. But Meg Ryan's like, oh, you're going to make so many people jealous. You're the first person that has settled Maverick down. Like, he's clearly in love with you. And like, Maverick and Goose are like playing Great Balls of Fire on the piano, and like the kid, like their son, is sitting there. And like, he's super awkward. Like, he gets really close to the kid and like gets his hands around the kid, but doesn't actually touch the kid. And then he like it's just weird. He's like very robotic and very stiff. Like, it was very off-putting seeing him like interact with a child.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird, and I guess it's not a big deal, so they didn't feel like they needed to reshoot it. But I don't fault Tom Cruise for being 25 and not knowing how to act with a kid. But it was weird.
It was definitely weird. And that's just another thing. He's super young in this movie. Yeah, he's like 25 years old. And at the end of the movie, like, he overcomes his grief because he feels responsible for Goose's death, which is understandable. And it's only supposed to be like, it's like the last week of class when Goose dies. And like, Maverick doesn't do as well in his like little, they call them hops, but they're little like mission, they're training scenarios are called hops, and he doesn't do very well in one of them, and everyone's like, dude, you fucking suck, Maverick. And then like Tom Skerritt, who plays Viper, who's like the main teacher at Top Gun, and had to be like, dude, like his best friend and like partner, like these guys are put together and fly together for years and depend on each other. Like it's like having part of you die, and everyone's like, you fucking suck, Maverick. And like Viper had to be like, dude, his best friend just died like yesterday.
But Viper also is the one who sent him up immediately.
Yeah,
he was like, get him back in the air, Chester.
and that's the thing that's really weird about this movie. Like the whole point is supposed to be Maverick matures and becomes the best pilot, because it's between him and Iceman who are gonna get Top Gun, and it's neck and neck. And honestly, like watching it this time around, I blame Iceman for Goose's death. I think it's more
because he put him in the jet wash.
Yeah. Now, granted, they you can't see a jet wash or anything like that, but the whole reason that happened was Iceman was up by a few points, and he knew he wasn't going to get the kill, but the longer he took to go let off so Maverick can get it, Maverick was going to get less points. Yeah. So he specifically delayed the clock to prevent Maverick from overtaking him, where if he just got out of the way, there was a much less of a chance that they would have crossed streams.
Yeah, I feel like I think it's inevitable the way the first two acts are set up that the third act is going to feel kind of weird. And it's not just Goose not being there and dying, but it's also like they've been in school this whole time, so of course we have to see them graduate and do a real mission. But then when you realize that we could have been watching real gunfights or dogfights this whole time, and we've just been watching them in school, it's kind of like it ends up being anticlimactic, I think.
Well, to that note, it's a little weird because, like you mentioned, it was Tom Skerritt's character Viper who was like, send him back up. His friend just died. We got to give him an opportunity to become a better pilot again. But throughout the movie, everyone's like, you're fucking dangerous, Maverick. Your body's writing checks that your ego can't catch, and all these different things. Like Iceman is like, you're not only are you dangerous, you're irresponsible, so that's a dangerous combination. You're gonna get somebody killed, and like everybody is saying he's reckless and he's a liability, and he beats what's Michael Ironside's character's name? Jester. So like he was gonna beat Jester, and Jester didn't want to be beaten, so he flew. They had like a safety line, so he flew below the safety line, and Maverick called him out on it. He's like, dude, the guy just doesn't fucking want me to win, so he's changing the rules of engagement by going low, and so he breaks the rules. And so Viper and Jester are having a conversation like, what do you think? He's like, he's the greatest pilot I've ever seen. He goes, but he's reckless. Like, well, would you want him in the battlefield with you? And he's like, I don't fucking know. It's like the whole movie, everyone's like, even when he's like at his peak, they're like, I don't know if we'd want him on the battlefield, in the sky with us when our lives are actually on the line. Yet somehow at the end, like he has a choice. Like he has enough points to graduate, even though he didn't complete all the missions, but he decides to graduate. And during the middle of the graduation, they're like, oh, there's a crisis situation. We need the 3 best people to go. Maverick, you're up there. And it's like, why would you risk putting him up there in that moment? And he has his moments where he disengages, and everyone's like, oh, fuck, everyone's going to die because Maverick disengaged. But then he comes back. And this is what's weird. You mentioned most of the movie's school, and then the last, 15, 20 minutes is them being in a real dogfight with stakes. It sounds like none of these people have ever actually been in a real dogfight. Like Maverick kind of was at the beginning of the movie, where they had to just scare off those MiGs. But this is the first time they're in real combat, where like missiles are flying. Somebody actually did get shot down, and Maverick shoots down 3 planes, and Iceman shoots down 1, and then the rest fly off. Like they have never killed before. They killed, like they've taken, at this point, Maverick has killed 6 men in a matter of minutes,
including Goose,
and they're just like, it doesn't fucking affect them at all. They're just like, fuck yeah, just killed 6 North Koreans. Like they don't give a shit.
The Russians.
No, I looked at, it's North Koreans.
Those are white pilots.
That's what I thought, but I looked it up and it said North Koreans were who they were supposed to be fighting.
All right, well, I watched the movie, and on screen they're white. They're like
they look white, but they also have like the tinted mask, so you never actually see their faces.
I'm gonna look it up right now, and we're gonna have to pause the podcast while I find it.
It's North Koreans, dude.
I mean, I'm sure that they say that, but I want to find a picture.
I'm looking at it, and every single villain or enemy pilot has a dark visor that's put down so you can't see anything.
I feel like I remember seeing their eyes. And I say this because I remembered in Hot Shots, they literally are completely blacked out. Like you can't see anything. So when I was watching Top Gun last night, I was like, oh, you can see more of these guys.
You want to hear something crazy?
What's that?
So Katrina used to, this guy's a shady guy. I don't even remember his name, but Katrina worked with somebody who was like a stunt guy on this film.
Oh, cool.
And apparently even at this point in Tom Cruise's career, before he's the megastar. So we now know every movie he does, he has to have that crazy stunt that he has to do himself that can't be CGI. He's working on a movie with like Elon Musk where he's actually going to go up into space is going to be his next big stunt.
You say that like it's a bad thing, by the way. I think that's awesome.
I think it's fucking awesome. The downside to it is when he gets hurt, like things have to completely shut down. So it's like, that's why you have stunt people. But you know what? Like he became a producer specifically so he can greenlight getting these movies done himself.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Sony losing a couple bucks over that.
Yeah, but even at this stage in his career, he was reluctant to do the movie, but then Tony Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer got him on a military base and put him in a plane and had him do like all the loop-de-loops and shit, and he's like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm on. He wanted to fly the planes this early in his career, and the military had to be like, you can go fuck yourself. And at one point, apparently, he was like, for a few days, wasn't allowed on the base because he like pissed off a couple of like people on the air base. But the new movie, The Maverick, which is coming out someday, he actually did fly some of the planes. So he actually learned how to fly, and he'll be flying some of the planes in the next Top Gun movie, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Sorry, I'm hearing like noises outside. All right, I'm going to show you a picture on the computer. Ready?
Yep. Yeah, that's the only one that I found that one too. That was the only one.
That is a white man with blue eyes.
That is, but they're supposed to be North Korean.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure that you read that, but I'm telling you in the movie, they are white men with blue eyes.
Just the one. You can't even see the color of his eyes in that photo. I found that same photo.
I can see that they're not brown.
Anyway, maybe it was one random Russian guy helping out the North Koreans. Because this was in the 80s. Sure. The USSR hadn't fallen yet at this point.
Why were we even talking about the bad guys at the end? What was the point of that? Because I know I had
just saying that, they killed.
He killed
a dozen men, and between all of them, they killed like a dozen men they've never killed before, and they're just like, fuck yeah, and they're all like celebrating, cheering, ripping each other's shirts off, like, you could be my wingman. No, you could be mine.
So there's also the moment when like the famous thing where Tom Cruise's character like wins a mission or whatever in training, and then he asks for permission to do a flyby of the control tower, and they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that, and then he does it anyway, and the guy drops his coffee and stuff. So the next day,
like 3 times.
Yeah. So the next day, that guy is in Viper's office, like yelling at Viper, telling him that he wants somebody to be held responsible for that. Because I guess he doesn't know that it sounds like he doesn't know that it was Maverick. But anyway, he's in the office yelling, and he goes, I want some butts. I want some butts over this. He says it like twice, and then he leaves and gets coffee on him again.
Then like an intern bumps him.
Yeah, with a coffee. But the point of that story is he says he wants butts, which again proves my theory that this is a movie about men loving men.
You're making some arguments that I can't really argue against.
Did you notice that everyone in this movie looks like a young Joe Biden?
Kinda.
Because they're all wearing the glasses. They're all wearing Joe's aviators. If you put a mask on oh my God, they wear the masks in the plane, but they don't wear the mask and the glasses at the same time. If they did, they would all be Bidens.
I'm ready to move on. How about you? Anything else that we need to talk about? I don't think there's anything that you and I can say that hasn't been said about this movie.
I have 3 quick things to say.
All right, Sam.
Tim Robbins is in this.
Briefly, yeah.
Pretty cool. 2 scenes, I think.
Yep. He bookends the movie.
Did you notice that the end of the movie, like where Maverick decides to come back into battle, he kind of uses the Force?
No, I didn't notice that.
He doesn't control anything, but it is very similar to the scene at the end of New Hope where...
Oh, there's that one point where he doesn't wait for the missile tone and he like shoots the missile.
I don't think it's even that. I think it's just him sort of like closing his eyes and centering himself, but in a way that's very, very reminiscent of New Hope, where he's like, use the Force, Luke.
Well, yeah, it's when he's recognizing, it's like Tom Skerritt's character. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand
this. Is it a flashback? Is that why I'm saying that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a flashback. So throughout the movie, like you hear at the very beginning. So the beginning of the movie opens up with Maverick and Goose scaring off some MiGs, and there's another pilot who like gets scared. Like there's a missile lock on him, and then Maverick goes and is able to scare off the pilot, and so the guy's like, "Oh shit! Like I literally almost died." He gets like immediately gets like PTSD to the point where he like freezes. He can't even fly the plane anymore. So Maverick is like almost out of fuel and he has to go back. And that's when we get the scene where he like inverts and flips off the other pilot. But he
That's
gets
at the beginning.
That's the very beginning. But he gets yelled at in the office, and the bald guy who runs the the carrier says something along the lines like, "Dude, your name doesn't mean anything. Like we need to put somebody in Top Gun, so we're gonna put you guys by default. But just know, like, your name in the military is like fucking dog shit. Like your dad was a fucking idiot." And then like we hear that throughout the whole movie. Like we hear that a couple of times in the movie, like your dad was kind of a fuck up. But we don't hear anything about it. Like we just know that like he disappeared or some shit like that. And then at the end of the movie, like when Tom Skerritt, it's like, "Hey Tom Cruise, like you need to like man up and you need to figure out how to be a good pilot again and get out of your head. Oh, by the way, like I was there the day that your dad like crashed, and like this is classified and I can't tell you and I can lose my job. But like, dude, your dad was the greatest pilot in the world and like saved countless lives and everything." And then that's what Tom Cruise was remembering when he like uses the Force. He's like, he's remembering that, and then he's remembering
which is also
Goose.
very similar to Star Wars.
Yeah. The only thing I want to end with one note from me.
I had a
just
third
one
thing.
note. No, I want to go one, and then you close us off.
Okay.
I want you to have the last word because I normally do.
Okay.
All right. This movie ends with Maverick littering. He fucking throws Goose's name tags or dog tags out in the ocean. Littering.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're in international waters, so. My last note was that even though the movie gets kind of muddied in the third act, Ice is right about everything.
I don't disagree with you on that. Like, he's right.
Yeah. I hear knocking.
You probably hear that on my end. Katrina's unpacking stuff.
My upstairs neighbor has been very loud lately, so I'm
Son of a
extra
bitch.
sensitive to it.
At 1:50 p.m., one of our neighbors, the one that I told you about that was in that movie, we're not going to bring her onto the podcast. She's a fucking bitch. Like, she was super nice when she came out and like introduced herself. And then one of our other neighbors was like, "Just know she's going to complain about noise all the goddamn time." She's like, and so Katrina was listening on our little, like the smallest Sonos speaker you can get in the bedroom, which was literally across the hall from my office. We both had our doors open. She was listening to music, and I could barely hear it in the office with both doors open. And she comes and starts knocking on the door, and she's like, "Your guys' bass is way too loud. Like, your subwoofer's too loud." I'm like, one, it's a little like 3-inch speaker. Like, come on. And I'm like, we'll turn it down, but like, dude, it's fucking 2:00 in the afternoon. Like, you can't. You can't be nice.
Yeah, you got to set those boundaries real early, man.
Yeah. So I'm like,
tell her
the next time.
Tell her,
like,
yo, between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., we can do whatever we want. So
yeah. It's like, dude, you can't expect us like to not hear anything. Dude, we can't hear any. We haven't heard anything from any of our other neighbors. So like, if she could barely hear me, she's like, "Your bass is too loud." It's like, dude, this fucking speaker doesn't even have a woofer in it. It's 2 tweeters and a mid-range speaker. Yeah. Like, there's no fucking bass in this fucking speaker. Shut the fuck up. But
you tell her, listen, I used to work at an audio place. I know about audio.
Yeah.
What have I been up to, bud?
Audio. Yeah. What have you been up to, bud?
I watched the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special.
I heard that was fun.
Yeah, it was okay.
Nice.
That's my review. I revisited the Joker.
Huh.
Still bad.
Yep, I agree with you on that. I'm not going to go back to it.
I rewatched it because Scarlett hadn't seen it. And I actually, like, she expressed a little bit of interest a few weeks ago. And I was like, well, I guess I would rewatch it. And then, like, I ended up being the one to push it the other day.
You fool.
Because it's kind of interesting to rewatch stuff. I'm not upset that I rewatched it. But all of my complaints hold up.
Are still there.
Yeah, it's just not everything about that movie is fantastic except for the directing and writing.
I think that's totally fair. I think there's some good performances and that's it.
And the music's great. It's beautiful.
The score
The
is what made
cinematography.
it for me.
Yeah, everything about it's good except for the directing and writing. I watched the
David
Between
Fincher
Two Ferns.
just had a interview about it, and he said it was like a betrayal to mental health on cinema.
Yeah, I saw that. I watched the Between Two Ferns movie, which was fun, like kind of pointless but fun. Jackass #2, super fun.
I remember that one's good. That one's fun.
Orgasmo, which I haven't watched in a while. That's still very fun.
You brought that up like a few episodes back that you wanted to rewatch that.
It's good, man. Starsky and Hutch.
Nice.
Yeah.
The movie?
Yeah. With
Okay.
Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller.
Yep.
I rewatched The Interview. Do it. And The Interview is the other recent one,
Got it.
which I've seen.
That it?
I think I've seen it like 5 or 6 times now. It's pretty good.
I've only watched it once.
I've been watching a lot of Simpsons.
We rewatched Edge of Tomorrow
Hell yeah.
not too long ago, or Live, Die, Repeat, whatever you want to call it. They keep changing the name. Fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's so good.
The ending is a little but like it's so well done for most of the movie. So that we rewatched that.
Well, similar to Top Gun, that is a movie that should have had a sequel immediately.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
I mean, I actually don't know that Top Gun needs a sequel, but I'm surprised that they didn't do it
well, it's coming
sooner.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else we watched. I haven't had a ton. Like I haven't watched much over the last week because we were moving. But of course, watched Mandalorian. I had to set up at least one TV to get through Mandalorian.
The new episode wasn't very good.
It's my least favorite of the series so far.
So I got burnt out on the Mandalorian on season 1. I was like, I didn't get burnt out, but I thought it was overhyped. I thought it was cool.
I love season 1.
I really enjoyed watching it, but I wasn't connected to any of the characters, and it just like it wasn't doing it for me. The beginning of the season was doing it, but by the end I was like, meh. And then the first 3 episodes of this season, I was like, oh fuck, I'm back in. These are great. And this one was a kind of a letdown.
I'm sorry to hear that, bud.
Well,
I'm trying to think what else
I'm still
I
here.
watched.
I'm excited for the next one.
I rewatched. Like I had some shit I had to do. Like with the move, I had to go drive. This was a pain in the ass to drop off my lease. I had to drive out to like Century City to drop off my lease in like the middle.
We're
of the
gonna
day.
go to Century City. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, I know. But I had to go out to I had to take like a long lunch to go drop off my lease, like the middle of the work day. So I ended up having to like make up that time after work and get some shit done. So Katrina was working, so I just like threw on a movie in the background. But I rewatched the first Avengers movie from the MCU. Cool. Fun. It's a fun movie. It's interesting because I don't think it's as good as the later movies, and like it's very Joss Whedon, but
yeah,
I feel still a very enjoyable film.
We've been talking a lot today about things aging well, and I think Joss Whedon stuff tends to not age very well.
Yeah. And I still really enjoyed it, and I really liked that chair fight scene, the interrogation scene with Black Widow.
Yeah.
She looked great.
That's cool
because
she's getting her whole own movie. It was her birthday the other day. Happy birthday, Scarlett Johansson.
Happy birthday, Scarlett Johansson.
If you want to come on the show, you're more than welcome.
Anytime, any topic.
Anything.
But
we'll do whatever you want.
Pretty much all I watched.
I want to talk to her about Under the Skin.
You should talk to her about Under the Skin.
Well, she comes on the podcast. We'll do that.
If she comes on, we'll talk about it. But I think that's really all that I watched. Like we've been still trying to get through. Not trying. Like there's a lot of content, but we've been watching I Love Lucy at Night. It's fantastic. It's really fun. Nice. Definitely problematic, but you know, it's from the 50s. But not a lot. I've been really busy. But let's get into Hot Shots.
I've also been playing a lot of Fallout 4, by the way.
Oh, I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4 is so fun. I fucking love that game.
It's super
a damn near
addicting.
perfect game.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of what's that game that everyone's playing right now?
Miles Morales.
Oh, I did play that. That's what I was doing. I got that game, and it came out before we even got our keys for the apartment, so I was able to like get through that. I put like 3 hours in the day it came out, and then another 3 hours the next day. It's fun. I actually like it more than the first Spider-Man game.
Oh, it's cool. I really like the first one, so
might
have to check that out.
It's shorter, and like you don't have like all the same gadgets because you know he's supposed to be different and he's starting his career. But like I was really worried about when I saw the trailer, like how much you were seeing him use like the electric shocks and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is going to be like OP. It's too much, but it really wasn't. It was really well done how they added the extra powers like the invisibility, the electric shocks. It was really intuitive how they added it to like the combat system, and it's really fun. It's a little short, but it's a really, really fun game.
I hear that about myself a lot.
Ha. Ha. The only critique I have, and if you've played the first one, you know, so like the first game had like you go across and you get all around the city and you get backpacks. And then not too long after you get like your camera and you're supposed to go and take pictures of all your landmarks. And then you had all the different enemy bases that you had to go and clear out. So you have the demon's bases and the kingpin's bases you had to clear out. But you got exposed to most of those in the first half of the game. And then you can go through and get them all taken care of as you go through the rest of the game. This game, you have to go on a fetch quest to get all the different things across the city. And then you get a little later into the game, you get more, and then a little bit more. And then you get to the point where you're like right at the end of the game. Like you're like 90% done with the game, and then you get another fetch quest. So it's like it kind of artificially lengthened the game by giving you these like go all around the city. And there were like 5 different types of things like that. So there's like you had to get tech upgrades, and then there was another thing where you had to get like time capsules, and then I can't remember. There was another thing for like the prowler you had to get. So it's like it was like 4 or 5 different missions where you had to go all over the city. And I was like, I would have preferred to get these in the front half of the game, and then I could bang out like a whole district at once versus like having to go through the city 4 times. So that's my only criticism is like they clearly knew they had a short game, so they spread that shit out to make it longer versus making it efficient. So felt like it kind of wasted my time. But the story, the gameplay was fun.
Nice. This has been GG's with Mike and Alex. That's our new segment.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Hot shot. Let's do it.
We spent an hour talking about Top Gun. What?
We didn't do we only spent about 28 minutes talking about Top Gun. We spent a lot of other time doing other shit. But we forgot to do the elevator pitches for Top Gun.
I mean, everybody's seen Top Gun, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Hot shot part.
I did the elevator pitch. It's a movie about a man finding his way back to love.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go. We're good.
And just copy and paste that back into earlier.
There we go.
So Hot Shots came out in 1991 and is a parody of Top Gun. And it's one of these parodies that we talked about earlier that hews very closely to the film that's parodying.
Quick question.
The story is...
How old do you think Charlie Sheen looks in this movie?
30.
I would say he looks mid-30s. Do you know how old he was?
27.
He was 26, but he looked like he was pushing 40 to me.
It was weird revisiting this and having a different perspective on Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
After
That's
Tiger's
fair.
Blood and everything. And he doesn't look that different now. Like if you look at this movie and where he's at now, he didn't age that poorly, to be honest. Or not now, but 5 years ago or whatever.
Especially with like how much drugs and living he's done. Like,
but I think that's because he did a ton before he was 27, probably.
Yeah, like he's early 50s now, so he's a little younger than my parents, but he looks older than my parents. Like he looks like he's 60 now. But considering like how many drugs he did and that he's HIV positive, like he looks pretty fucking good, all things considered.
Yeah, a lot of money to throw at, things that make you look young.
Yep. Well, he's got the what kind of blood does he have?
That, tiger's blood.
Having
said all that, he looks good in this movie. He looks older, but he's
he fits the part.
Guy. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. I just accidentally started complimenting Charlie Sheen. So this movie took 5 years to make after Top Gun.
Yeah, that surprised me. And one of the things I really appreciated it, right off the top, it has almost the same opening credits where it's just people doing their little tasks on the carrier deck, and it had music that was not the same, but very similar. And I think that's really impressive to have that homage to the music of the original, where you're almost is this the music from the original movie? It's not quite, but it's very, very close. And so they had the bow now, their version of that. And then they had like that upbeat kind of 80s song that's not Danger Zone, but very, very similar to Danger Zone.
Sort of
I thought that was
synth rock.
Yeah, I thought that was really impressive what they did that.
They made it look like the way Tony Scott shot Top Gun too. The whole movie is very hazy.
Yeah. The only I'm just going to say this up front, like I didn't hate the movie, but I only laughed like 4 times.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I enjoyed it, but I did not find myself laughing out loud as much as I thought I was going to.
I think Hot Shots Part 2 was funnier, but I also don't really remember it. But I definitely remember that one more than this one. But like, I also forgot that Carrie Elways was in this movie.
I forgot that Lloyd Bridges is in this movie.
Lloyd Bridges, like, this is his bread and butter, like these type of movies. Like, he's in. Yeah. Until he died, he was in like all these spoof movies. They wanted Leslie Nielsen, but he turned it down. He's like, I think I'm done with these type of movies. And he went on to do Spy Hard and another Naked Gun movie after this, and Mr. Magoo and
this was between 2 and 3, huh?
Yeah,
Naked Gun. Okay. Yeah, I love Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, me too.
Do we need to go through the plot of this movie quickly?
We can go through it really quickly. Since you did it, do you want me to do this one? Since you had your so. It's a lot like Top Gun, where you have the renegade, kind of like the guy's dangerous.
Oh, no, wait. Sorry. Pitch me this movie.
Oh, okay. Damn it, I don't want to do it now. It's a lot harder. So I'm just going to say this at the top. We've done a couple of these type of movies on Ruin My Childhood. So we did the Austin Powers movies, and we did Scary Movie. And it's actually really hard to talk about these types of movies because it's so many jokes. You know, it's...
I didn't even try to write down.
Yeah, in any frame of the movie, you're going to see 5 or 6 jokes. Like, just as an example, there's when he's supposed to go see the psychiatrist, you see like funny little psychiatrist posters. Then he also has like Psychiatrist Monthly Swimsuit Edition. Like, there's so many things going on in any given frame. Like, it's really hard to really jot down like the jokes because there's too many. But
yeah, there's like I don't know what you'd call it. I don't want to say school of something again because I said that earlier. But this is a type of comedy writing where they are trying to do as many jokes on each page as possible.
Yeah.
And, you know, the common wisdom, which is not necessarily true, is that a page equals a minute of screen time. So they're packing like multiple jokes into every single minute. So this movie is, 90 minutes long or whatever it is. There's 200 jokes in it.
Just the opening credits where they're just seeing everyone go through the aircraft carrier, getting ships or planes ready to launch. You see, them playing football. You see them like, you hear ducks going quack, 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 like just actually saying quack, quack, quack. Roasting a hot dog on the jet engine.
There's you
see a Mexican gardener with a leaf blower. Like,
which is not the most racist joke in the movie.
No, that's the end of the movie. The end of the movie is insanely racist.
Okay, so this movie is about a fighter pilot who goes to a prestigious dogfighting academy, falls in love with a woman. One of his crew members or one of his co-pilots, whatever, dies, which makes him, which takes the edge off of his game and makes him scared to engage and stuff. And then he's thrust into a real battle where he needs to overcome his bullshit.
And the other thing that makes this its own unique story is
he gets the girl at the end.
The thing that makes this unique, and that's one of the things we talked about, is having its own story that's reminiscent of the original, but also have its own story that carries it on its own, is there's a lieutenant who specifically recruited the worst possible candidates because he wanted the mission to fail because he's in bed with a military contractor.
Did he recruit the worst possible? I know he was trying to sabotage, but I didn't realize that
he did that. People. So that's he recruited. So you had Washout, played by John Cryer,
who's got crossed eyes,
who's like legally blind. Then you had who else? Like, everybody had some sort of issue where they weren't very good.
There was a woman.
That was weird. That little joke. And then you had Carrie Elways that was just obsessed with himself. Like, every time he would pick up a magazine, it would always be his face on the cover. But yeah,
why is he on magazines if he's the worst?
I don't know, dude.
Because he's so handsome.
He says I don't know, I can't remember the name of the actor, but he says, we recruited these people specifically because we want the mission to fail. So that way the military thinks that we need better equipment, and then they'll buy your planes at a premium cost. So that's the subplot that makes this different than Top Gun.
And that's something I was going to say. I think I said I was going to mention this earlier. But this movie sort of corrects an issue that Top Gun had, where Top Gun doesn't really have a villain because
Nope.
Iceman is right about everything.
I
And
agree.
he's concerned for the men in the mission. And he doesn't do anything wrong, Iceman. Tom Cruise is sort of, battling with himself a little bit, but, it's not like Fight Club or something.
Yeah.
And then the bad guys come in at the end, and they're not really even like bad guys. That's what made Top Gun feel kind of weird to me, is that all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're in a conflict with Russia. We're in a proxy war. It's like, you haven't mentioned this the entire movie.
No.
Am I supposed to care about it now? This
Yeah.
is weird.
Yeah.
So this movie
it's
sort
very
of fixes
contrived.
that.
No, I agree that it has like it has a central plot that's moving everything forward. Because the whole movie is they're training specifically for Sleepy Weasel, which is the name of the mission that they're going on. So yeah, this one, like, they're learning how to be better pilots for this specific mission. It's kind of like the Pearl Harbor movie with Michael Bay, where it's like the second half of the movie is they're learning how to fly for that specific mission to get on that specific aircraft carrier, because it's a shorter runway than they need for that type of plane or whatever it was in Pearl Harbor. So I agree that does fix this kind of thing. I don't really have much to say. Like, I kind of want to just say the 4 jokes that I thought was really funny.
Okay.
So one of them, I did think it was really funny when the guy crashes at the very beginning of the movie and then has the branches out of his head. And
Classic.
It's deer season. And then
I just like
someone-
those 2 characters, by the way.
Yeah, that was funny. But then I liked when we're getting introduced to the crew, Carrie Elways is like, that was my dad, and your dad was the pilot and caused it to happen. And then Jonathan Cryer comes up and he's like, oh, I don't know if I should tell you this, but like, my dad was the hunter and we ate your dad. I thought that was kind of funny. It was just, and then
it keeps going.
It keeps going, but then
Christy Swanson is like, oh wait, was your father a fucking
find out they're
Hufflepuffer?
cousins.
Yeah. No, and then somebody else comes up and he says, wait, do you mean Deborah so and so? Well, then we're cousins.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, did you have family reunions at Lake whatever? And everyone in the group goes, Lake whatever.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to the joke.
So it goes, but then my favorite part was Charlie Sheen's character, Topper Harley, says, shouldn't you be mad at him? He's the one who killed, like, his dad actually killed your dad, and he ate him. And he goes, no, but your dad's responsible for the crash.
He says,
and everything.
I wrote that down too. He says, why are you mad at me? He's the one that ate your father.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. The other
It's so
thing
good.
that I thought was pretty funny was, let me go through my notes. I did laugh at the Psychology Today swimsuit edition. I just thought that was stupid. And then there's a part when before they're together, but Charlie Sheen is looking at the love interest, and he goes, you have the whitest white part of the eyes that I've ever seen. Do you floss? I was like,
so good. Her name's Valeria Golino. And my notes, I accidentally wrote her down. It's Isabella Rossellini. It is not Isabella Rossellini.
it's not Isabella Rossellini.
She's in a bunch of these spoof movies, and then she's also in a bunch of like foreign, very serious movies.
Yeah.
But her and Lloyd Bridges are the absolute best parts of this movie to me.
For sure. And then the last thing that I really laughed at, it's the end of the movie. They were successful. They killed all the enemy pilots, and they land, and Topper goes to the lieutenant who was like in bed with the plane manufacturer, and he's like, you wanted us to fail. And like the lieutenant's like, hey, I'm really sorry. By the way, your dad was a cool dude. Like, this is like the same thing. Like, he actually did everything he could to save everybody. But he's getting a blood transfusion, and it like literally has a guy on a bed next to him, and they're hooked up with a tube. And
The guy looks like the dude
deflates.
from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, he does look like him, or he kind of looks like Kevin Nash. But yeah, he's just like, there's a blood transfusion, and he just deflates as the scene goes on. I thought that was really funny.
Such a good gag.
And then to my point that I said, what makes a bad movie is when Dead Meat finally died. Like, he has this scene like where they're gonna go up on the mission, and his wife shows up, just like Meg Ryan shows up, and she's like, hey, I got your life insurance papers, can you sign it? And he goes, oh sure. And he's like, oh, my pen's dead, I'll sign it when I get back. And then they say like all these, oh, we just got a house. And then she like breaks a mirror, and then something else like, oh, where's my lucky
He
gum?
walks under a ladder.
He walks under a ladder, and so like all these terrible things happen, and then he crashes, but he survives, and then he gets hit by an ambulance, and then as the ambulance is driving, like he's flipping around and bouncing, and then he gets to the hospital, and like all these things are going wrong. He's like, I'm at the hospital, what can go wrong? And then he's just at the funeral. I thought that went on way too long.
I kind of enjoyed that. I really liked it up to the point where he gets in the plane where he's got all the bad luck omens. I didn't mind that. I like the like smash cut or whatever you want to call it from I'm in a hospital, what could go wrong, to a funeral.
I liked that, but I just thought like from the time he got hit by the ambulance and like seeing the whole drive to the hospital, I think it just, for me, it was a little too much. Like I think a little less would have been more for me on that scene.
Yeah, that didn't bother me, but I hear you. Do you want to hear my favorite jokes?
Yes, I do.
All right. So in that same scene, Topper, Charlie Sheen, shows up late, and John Cryer ends up going into the plane instead of him. Nobody checked. It's ridiculous. So Topper's on the ground standing with the Meg Ryan wife character, and they're watching this, this catastrophe happen, and the plane starts to go down, and Charlie Sheen is like, "Oh, you don't want to see this. Turn around." And he sort of nods her and turns her around. And previously in the scene, we had seen some guys, some like workers wheeling a mirror through the tarmac for no reason. So she turns around, she's looking at a mirror, seeing her husband crash. I like that one. I like the scene where Topper and Ramada are remembering all of their dates, and one of them is a scene from Superman 78 or whatever, and she's Lois Lane and he's Superman, and they're just flying around like a pigeon lands on him. I like flashbacks like that to things that we didn't see.
Community has a whole episode where they do like the clip episode of things we never saw. I thought that was great.
And I'm going to bring up Community in a minute too. I'm glad you said that. Another one of my favorites was Topper. I forget who he's talking to, but he's talking to the bad army guy who's sabotaging the whole mission.
The dad from Small Soldiers and Transformers.
That's right. Thank you. And he's trying to like tell him, I understand why you did it, but you got to remember, something like this is a bad idea. And he says, my somebody when I was a kid used to always tell me why you don't sleep with your sister. She's a great piece of tail with a blouse full of goodies. But
it goes on.
And it goes on for so long, but that line fucking killed me.
The other thing that I thought was funny is that
my favorite running joke was people sitting on dogs on the Chihuahua and then picking them up and giving them a pet and putting them down. It happens like 4 times in the movie, and it's so funny. It sounds stupid, but I love it.
The other thing that I thought was really funny was at the beginning when they show up at the military base for the first time, you see all the people like marching, the soldiers like marching that you always see in these movies, and it's like they're like dreidel, 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 and then they're also singing the theme to the Brady Bunch as their marching song. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Speaking. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Speaking of dead meat, he was going to solve global warming in 1991.
1991.
Yeah, you talk about using topical references, but unfortunately, that's one that did not age poorly.
No, that's insane. This movie was pretty fucking racist, though. There are 3 pretty blatant racist shit in this movie. So, like, the beginning
But I don't think it was throughout the movie. It was just in, like, a few
it was, like, pockets.
Parts.
So, you have, like, the beginning of the movie after, the pilot gets killed by the hunters. You have the dad from Small Soldiers and Transformers is going to, like, a Native American reservation to bring Topper Harley back into the Navy. And like he has this like name where it means like fluffy bunny feet because he has bunny slippers. But he has this conversation with like the chief, and they're just saying nonsense words like Winnebago and stuff like that. And it's like, even in the 90s, that's kind of like, come on, dude. And then
it's funny because it's not even. I'm a white guy. Like, feel free to correct me on this. I don't think the fact that he was on an Indian or Native American reservation and was hiding out there or whatever, I don't think that's the issue. I don't think anything was really racist. Like, him wearing the fluffy bunny feet is funny about Topper. I don't think that's insulting to Native Americans. But then like changing the language because it sounds funny is like super.
That
shitty.
was like come on, like
yeah.
And it's like even if they just did gibberish versus like saying actual words that just sound funny, like I was like that's weird. And then the only black character in this movie is Jazz, just like in Transformers.
Yeah.
And then you had the very end, they're fighting.
Not great.
they don't say exactly what country they're, but they're like Middle Eastern.
Well, he ends up bombing Iraq, so
Yeah. So you can. Yeah, that's right. He ends up killing Saddam Hussein.
Which for all of this, really good lookalike actor.
Yeah, they advertised at the time when this movie was going into theaters that they actually got Saddam Hussein in the movie. But
that's kind of funny.
As they're going through, they have like the same thing, dark visors for the pilots, and they're saying like Allahu Akbar and just like
they're saying like shish kebab,
Shaheen,
and like all of their like call signs like Tom Cruise's Maverick, and Anthony Ezra's Goose, and Topper Harley. I think it's just Topper actually.
Yeah.
But they all have these like call signs on their helmets, like written on their helmets, and all of the Iraqi pilots I'm assuming they're Iraqi because they killed Saddam Hussein. All of these guys have names like Tabuli and Baba Ganoush and stuff. And I was just fucking cringing the whole time. Like that sucked.
Yeah, that was a little weird, but
not great. And then at the end of the movie, he goes back to the Native American reservation where he was staying, and Valerina Galino comes out in like full Pocahontas outfit, I think is what they're going for.
Yeah,
and I
her name is
really...
Sizzling Stomach or something like that. Because in this movie, the sex scene is like the food. They cook food on her belly. That was weird.
Yeah, but that's not really offensive. That's just silly.
No, it's just weird.
But I didn't need to see her in the headdress.
No, it was a little weird. The only other joke I forgot to mention this earlier, is that after like the crew all meets each other and Topper's like, dude, why are you mad at me and not that guy? He literally ate your dad. And then Carrie always like storms off, and then they have Dead Meat comes up and he's like, hey Topper, like we're a family, we need to learn to get along, and you guys need to shake hands and be like better friends. And they like crunch each other's hands. But he's like saying like, hey, we depend on each other, and like you're like a brother to me now. And Topper Harley was like, no, dude, like we fly together and that's all, nothing. And then like he storms out and everyone's like, he's so complex. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I don't know how I feel. Like I didn't hate this movie, but I also like,
I enjoyed it.
I don't think it felt like a chore, but I only laughed like 4 times in 87
I think
minutes
you can
of all these jokes.
I think you can find something funny without laughing out loud, especially if you're watching it by yourself.
That's true, but like there was only like four or five things, so I was like, that's funny. Like
the only time I was unhappy watching this was the third act with all the Islamophobic jokes.
Yeah, that was weird.
I don't even know if Islamophobic is really the right phrase, but
it's just straight up racist.
Yeah. We don't have time for it now, and it kind of didn't come up naturally in our conversation.
Bring it up now, bud.
Feel like I'd be remiss to say, I feel like we don't really get these types of parodies anymore, and in a future episode at some point I'd love to talk more about it because I have theories, but to say it in a short way, we
got more coming up.
Yeah, I'll just say, in a short version of it now, and then maybe we can expand it later. It's a result of a lot of things, and I think part of it is the spoof, satire, parody, burnout that we experienced at the end of the aughts. And then another part of it is that the mid-budget movie in Hollywood is disappearing.
Yeah.
So you end up getting all these movies that are super bankable, all of the superhero movies, all the Marvel movies, and your Disneys and stuff and James Bonds. And then you also get these like micro-budget horrors usually, or like Sundance dramas.
Yep.
But Blumhouse, we talked about them. It like really took advantage of the micro budget horror thing. But all of these like mid-range movies like this disappear. Movies that you can't make for, this movie was $29 million, by the way, in 1991. So that's like a solid 40 million now. You can't make movies like this for much less than that because they require sets and they require gags.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like simple one shots in this movie that, similar to the improv movies, you can just kind of turn a camera on and it's fine. You don't have to do a whole lot. But they also have like big sets and stuff, and they have to film
effects, like they had the planes.
They had to film
explosions.
Yeah, they have to film dogfights in some way. I think a lot of the planes are real too, but you have to pay somebody to either get that footage or go out and shoot these people in the air. So this shit costs money, and Hollywood started getting rid of all of these like mid-range movies. So
unless you make $1 billion,
less.
they don't want it out there anymore.
Right. So I think where but I think there's still a demand for it. And I think where that demand ended up is a lot of the slapstick stuff. I was thinking about actually when Dead Meat is in the ambulance, what you were talking about, where he's like bumping his head and stuff. I think a lot of that like physical comedy and like people wanting to see other people get hurt and stuff, I think that got channeled into Jackass and like those types of like reality shows.
Even those were prior to the huge boom of these, like all the Scary Movie 3, 4, 5, Epic Movie, Date Movie, because Scary Movie,
I think
Jackass
happened. It all happened in the mid-aughts. It all happened in the mid-aughts. Jackass got really popular 2000 to 2003. And then the movies came out. Right, the movies came out
after.
The movies came out for the next 7 years. And during that time, that's when you're starting to see the contraction of these mid-budget movies. And then also that's the rise of YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people that have opinions about movie tropes and stuff are starting to take those opinions to YouTube and just talking about them or doing them super low budget. And I think that's how you end up with things like How It Should Have Ended or the Honest trailers or the Pitch Meeting series. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Pitch Meeting's fantastic.
That was funny. You sent me the one on cats. That was really good.
Dude, he's so good.
I think you're right.
What's his name? Ryan Brown or something. Like epic rap battles of history too. So all these people are doing that on YouTube. And then I also think that TV shows have been doing parodies of movies like just in 30 minutes forever. But I think that it got much more popular again around the same time during the aughts. And get back to Community. Like Community has entire episodes that are just exactly these. There's multiple jokes per minute and they're just parodies of entire genres. All the paintball episodes are I think the best example.
Yeah.
Well, but even like Community did a whole episode that's Law and Order. It literally is Law and Order.
They also did, they did some Tarantino homages as well.
That's right.
Yeah. And to your point, I think you're right. When you look at like parody music, that's not really a thing. Like Weird Al has talked about it and has said, by the time I decide I want to do something or come up with an album, like literally every version like of that song has been done. He brought up like when Call Me Maybe, Carly Rae Jepsen was big. Yeah. He's like,
shout out to Scarlett, loves that song.
He was like, everybody wanted me to do that. By the time I even could sit down and write one with YouTube, everybody having even a pretty high quality phone or camera on their phone. By the time I even heard the song on YouTube, there were already 1,000 parodies on that. So it's like, what am I supposed to do on that? Like, I can't compete with the internet anymore. So I think you're right. Like you see it with like on YouTube. Another one that you didn't bring up is like the Sweeted versions of trailers and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, they had a whole movie about that. Be Kind Rewind.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I get it. I think it is really hard to go and do a parody because everybody goes and makes their jokes. And even like podcasts, like we pick apart movies all the goddamn time.
Twitter, dude. Like people have hot takes immediately and then you can't make that joke in a parody movie. It takes a year and a half to make one of these things. Yeah. You're not going to go out and make it because all the jokes have been made on Twitter already.
Only way you could do it now would be
if you had $60 million and you could actually do some.
Well, no, the only way you would really be able to do it and have a movie and be able to do it would go, okay, I'm making a Marvel movie and I want to spoof it, is if Disney goes, you know what, we want to see if we can make a spoof movie, and they make a spoof movie in tandem with the regular movie they're making and release it.
I think that's what was happening when we were talking earlier about spoof movies coming out the same year as the movie they're spoofing.
Yeah.
I think they had access through back channels or just producers talking or whatever to what was going to happen in,
and I think
whatever movie 300.
It's also evolved. We brought up Edgar Wright and the Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, where we've kind of changed the parody to having its own movie and just paying homage to these things. Because you look at even Deadpool, like Deadpool completely flipped the superhero genre and is kind of a parody of superhero movies in the fact that the way he breaks the fourth wall and calls what's going to happen.
Right, and the only way that you get those movies is because they get $60 million to make them, and with that $60 million, you can bring something to the screen that people aren't going to get from Twitter or YouTube or whatever, But that's the only way that they happen now, is if there's some sort of spectacle that's worth going to the, big air quotes, worth going to the movies for. And
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. Vine, and Reels and
I miss
everything
Vine.
does it all.
TikTok is just fine.
Yeah, it really is. All right, well, I think it's time to wrap it up. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you? Give me all your plugs.
I'm on the Instagrams at dyslexic, DYS Alex IC. I'm on the Twitter tweety tweets at Polishi, just my last name. If you want to follow along with movies that I'm watching, I'm on Letterboxd at Polishi as well. And I'm running a sale on t-shirts on my Instagram next week. So
Use
the
my
day
likeness
after
without permission.
That's right, I did. The day
You have
the
my
day
permission
after
now.
Thank you. It's already up. I don't care. The day after you, the audience, listen to this, you'll be able to go to my Instagram and, well, I guess you could just go to the website, but it's the stuff that I have on my Instagram.
Tight.
30%, baby.
30% off his t-shirts is a fucking screaming deal, by the way. I've talked up his t-shirts before. They're fucking soft as shit. They're super comfy. I'm gonna take that back. I don't want to use the word shit in your shirts in the same sentence because they're not shit. They're like honestly some of the comfiest t-shirts out there. We're in the middle of moving, and we did laundry like in the middle of the move, and I just unpacked all my laundry, and I folded that shirt. Like I'm gonna be wearing that later tonight, bud. It's a great fucking shirt.
Think about me when it's wrapped around your body.
Fucking keeping me warm at night. It's fucking great.
Top Gun.
Caressing my breast.
I'm going to high five you like Top Gun after saying that.
All right. Well, you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. You going to say something?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to finish.
Oh, MDXpod. Okay. Fuck, now I'm all in my head.
Just say it again.
Yeah. You can follow anything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, you can support us at patreon.com/MDXpods. We're wrapping up our Fast and the Furious bonus episodes. Once those are done, we're going to continue doing bonus episodes, but they are going to be on Patreon only. So check us out, chip in $1, whatever you can afford, and help us keep this podcast afloat.
The high fives are them ejaculating.
Gross.
You've been great, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.